How we doing, roofers? So today we're going to talk about risk as it relates to you, your roofing business, taking your business from whatever level you're at, 7 or 8 figures, to the next revenue goal, and how you need to leverage risk effectively, understanding it, understanding when to apply more pressure, take bigger swings, or pull it back. And also how to relate to your customer and understand the risk that they're taking when they decide to sign up with you, and why advertising in and of itself comes with a set of inherent risks. All right, so let's get into it. I've broken it down into 5 specific categories for this video. Obviously, it can go a whole lot deeper, but starting with consumer risk. Now, this is absolutely essential that you understand, which is the risks that the customer is taking when they decide to buy a roof from you or any other roofing company, right? If you cannot empathize and understand deeply the reasons why they have objections, the type of risks that they're up against, what it could cost them to go with one of your competitors who does a bang up job, right? You must understand all these factors, or you will not be able to sell to them effectively, communicate with them effectively, market yourself, position yourself in your service area, and ultimately become the go-to roofer that you want to be, that'll take you to that next revenue tier, right? The consumer has all sorts of thoughts going through their mind. What if I lose money on this? What if I have to replace it in the next 5 years and I have to pay these thousands of dollars all over again? What if this company disappears? What if they're just passing through my area, etc., etc.? So these are the types of things that you can easily address in your marketing materials. We've been around in your service area for X amount of years. We've replaced these roofs for your neighbors, right? We use these materials that last longer than the other materials that the other service providers are providing, right? These are simple features and benefits of your product that are not necessarily going to deeply make them want to buy, but they will certainly influence the purchasing decision, right? More so, they want to know that they can actually trust you, and you convey that through various different types of marketing messages, right? The next that's more relevant to you on a personal level, all of these are going to be much more relevant to you on a personal level and your business, right? Business risk. This is, are the risks that I'm taking, is what I'm putting in going to bring me something out, right? So this could be something like advertising, of course. Now, that's what we specialize in here at Roof Ignite. That's what we offer to our clients, is complete marketing ecosystems which rely on Facebook advertising. This is essentially the biggest risk you might take in the short term. And if you calculate it properly and if you go with the right system, your advertising and your marketing system can be the lever that takes your business single-handedly to the next level. But you always have to understand that whatever marketing agency you sign up with, whatever style of advertising you do, whether it's Facebook ads, Google ads, SEO, local newspaper, banners, billboards, you will always be running a risk that no matter how many people see it, you might still have nobody act. You could have literally the best advertising in the world, run by the best advertisers, run at the perfect time, and you could still have no homeowners sign up. Why is that? Well, there's always the risk that the market just might not want it. Or somehow, somewhere, somebody else got to them first, somebody influenced them at a deeper level. And if you're not aware of that, well, then you're not going to actually close them on their roof, right? But all that to say, you always have an inherent risk in business. And that's sort of like a financial risk as well. Obviously, it is, because you're putting your dollars into advertising. But you also have business costs like overhead, like crews. Every time that you hire a sales rep, you're taking a risk on that person that they might have the close rate that will push your business forward, right? Every time you hire a crew, you're risking your business on the fact that they'll actually do good work, on the fact that they'll deliver, they'll do it on time, they'll do a quality job. And that ties into your reputation as well, of course, is if you're hiring lackluster crews, if you're running lackluster advertising, if you are hiring lackluster sales reps and you took too much risk on the wrong thing that you could not rely on, you risk your reputation. You've obviously seen other roofers in your service area. You might have even seen it happen to yourself, where the marketing system that you've built or the sales reps that you've hired have actually driven people away from your company and actually forcefully caused them to go with somebody different. The reason why is because you did not understand the risk that you were putting on your reputation when you decided to take those actions. Now, an important concept that ties this whole thing together that I have not mentioned yet is the positive side of risk. Now, high risk can mean high reward, right? When you take big swings, you can get home runs, but you can also strike out. Of course, this will always happen. And you'll always have somewhere in between where you fall flat, you fall short, you can't deliver, your crews don't do what they say they were going to do, your sales rep has a bad argument with his wife or her husband, and something fails, something falls short. But as you took the right swing with the right calculation, on the right advertising system, the right sales rep, no matter what happens, the market conditions, the arguments they get in, the way that the average consumer is thinking during that time, as long as you took the right swing and you took the right amount of risk, you will be able to come out ahead and you'll be able to scale your business to that next level. Sometimes that's as simple as just dumping more spend into your ads or into your advertising system. It's not always that simple though. Sometimes you have to actually fix things within your business that ads aren't going to be able to help you with immediately. Now, another risk that you'll run, which we see commonly time and time again, is okay, well, we're booked out. We're booked solid. We have more leads that we can handle. Does that mean that we need to stop advertising? And that in itself is a huge risk that typically does not pay off well. The reason why is because when you are getting booked out, when you are reaching that level of highest demand in your business, this is something more so intangible. The market has shifted to now they want to work with you. Now you are the go-to roofer. Now you have all this brand presence built up. You are a go-to name. You are somebody that they trust and they've seen. And when you turn your ads off, that can actually kind of disappear overnight. That is a huge risk that you run if you ever decide to turn advertising off, whether it's just one channel or all the channels, right? You always want to keep something going in the background, even if it means you eat a little bit of cost. It's the same concept as why you continue paying payroll, even if you're not in peak, right? You still want to keep your people around because you know that once the conditions shift back in your favor, you will be ready to pounce, right? More aspects of risk. Another intangible aspect of risk is the risk of inaction and opportunity cost. Now, these are intangibles as well. These are things that are not going to show up on your P&L. But if you don't act on a certain thing and then you don't get a result you were searching for, that is the opportunity cost, right? A clear example of this would be not advertising when you need to, turning off your advertising. Every time you do that, you have opportunity cost. Another example is when your crews are able to produce 2 to 3 times more work, able to handle 2 to 3 times more roof jobs, but you are refusing to up your advertising budget because you're seeing that your cost per lead is too high, whatever that means, and ignoring your cost per appointment, your cost per closed job, and the fact that you could actually grow your business to the next level, free up some serious working capital to reinvest into better systems all around, all across the board, and get you to that next revenue goal. That is the opportunity cost of inaction, right? And this happens whether it's with your crews, whether it's with your advertising dollars, whether it's simply with you not taking sales calls if you need to, right? If you are the best closer in your business and your sales performance starts to decline, well, if you're not immediately saying to yourself, well, I need to get on the phones or I need to get out to these estimates, I need to do some of this myself while my crews are sort of on a slump, you're going to cost yourself a lot of money as a result, right? Another opportunity cost is not having proper speed to lead. And that's a huge risk that you run, because if you're not contacting the leads that come into your system within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, you're going to lose. Oh, there's a Harvard study that can tell you the exact percentage, but it's over 80% of them. It's like an extreme amount of leads that are just going to disappear because you didn't contact them back quickly enough for them to actually pounce and act on what you needed, right? That's a huge opportunity cost. This you can reflect in your P&L, sort of, right? Because you can track your speed to lead. You can see what it is in its peak season. You can see what it is when it's declining, and you can tie that directly to your revenue. And you can say, well, is this the only factor? Probably not. I'm gambling, I'm taking a risk on the fact that this is definitely not the only factor, but it's one of the factors. It's the biggest bottleneck right now, and I'm going to take the risk of putting all my eggs into fixing that speed to lead problem. Now, luckily here at Roofing Night, we handle that speed to lead problem for you, because our team calls and qualifies your leads and puts them onto your calendar. So you don't have to risk reallocating your own resources to handling that. We do that for you. But that's besides the point. Another business, financial, and intangible risk in some way that you run commonly, that roofers run, is having a one-legged stool. Now, this is a visual example, right? When you're sitting on a bar stool, it has 4 legs, sometimes 3, right? And they all hold it together. Now, if there's just one leg in the middle, right? You sit on that stool, it can hold you for a while, as long as you're balancing properly, right? But then maybe you have a couple beers, you start topsy-turvying a little bit, that stool comes crashing down and everything falls down with it. Now, this happens all the time when roofers put all their eggs into the Google ads basket, when they put all their eggs into the Meta ads basket, when they put all their eggs into organic and referrals. The second that one of those lead channels stops producing, if it's their only lead channel, well, their whole business disappears along with it overnight. This is why it's so important to always have multiple lead channels. There's nothing inherently wrong with Angie's, Thumbtack, Google, SEO, Meta, YouTube ads, right? TikTok ads even. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of these advertising methods. The problem is when you put all your eggs in one basket. And so you always need to take the risk of investing more into multiple channels to have more what we call omni-presence in your marketing, so that you can get in front of more and more customers at different touch points where they like to actually be advertised to, because not everyone's going to respond to that billboard or that bench. They're actually more likely to respond to maybe a Facebook ad. Some might be more likely to respond to a YouTube ad. Some might be more likely to respond to a Google ad, right? And that's why within our meta advertising system, we have a wide variety of different funnel types that we will send traffic to. So we will leverage the fact that some consumers are more visual and they want to see a video. They want to see drone shots. They want to see textures of the roof tiles, right? There are other customers that want to see written word. They want to see how you write that sets you apart. And that's why we have ad copy, right? There are others that want to just hear about it. They want to listen to maybe an interview or a podcast with the roofing company owner that will increase that familiarity and increase that trust as a result, right? We can leverage all of these things in our advertising. And the great thing about Meta is that it allows us to distribute all of these as we please, whether it's static images, videos, long form videos, short form videos, etc., your website, right? There's so many ways that we can actually reach our ideal customer, but each of them comes with a risk. Again, because if you send only video ads out, you will only get the types of people that respond to video ads, right? But the algorithm is not necessarily 100% dead on, bang on accurate to the shifting market conditions, to how the consumer is feeling, to what's going on in your business, to how much money you have left, to where your reputation currently stands, and all these other intangibles that you're already risking on the line every time that you make an advertising decision. So you have to be very much in tune with what risks you're taking and when. Another common pitfall mistake is small sample size thinking. This is something that we see all the time, not just in our clients' businesses, but even within Roof Ignite, within every single person's mind. There is a constant bias that what's happening right now today is going to happen forever, right? And you have to control these emotions. It takes risk to control these emotions in itself, because you could think you have a huge problem right now and you need to jump on it, and you could be right, but you could also be very, very, very wrong. The way advertising works, again, with shifting market conditions, we see all the time, constantly. You're going to have a bad day where you get 0 leads through your Facebook ads, and you're going to spend money. You're going to spend very real money, and that's going to happen. But the next day, you might have the best advertising day you've ever had. You get the most leads you've ever seen. I see this all the time on my end as I'm advertising for and alongside Roof Ignite. There are days, literally yesterday at the time of filming this video, we had 0 leads in our business. 0 leads. And it would be so easy for me to freak out and say, we need to change everything. We need to scrap it all. We need to turn off ad spend completely. But I waited until today. And today we had so many leads. It was actually insane. Like we literally had a hard time keeping up with the amount of leads that came in today. That is just how advertising works. And many of our clients come in thinking that advertising is always going to be stable, but you must measure your ROI, your return on your advertising, your ROAS over time, over month-long spans, multiple week-long spans. At the bare minimum, you have to measure it over a continuous period of like 72 hours at a time, depending, of course, on how much money you're actually spending on the ads, right? The more you spend, the quicker you get data, but the lower those lows feel, right? It feels really bad when you spend a lot of money to get nothing. But when you spend a lot of money to get a lot, it feels really good. So you run the risk of not handling your emotions in those moments when you spend more money. You also run the risk of not making the right decision by not reallocating resources, by not turning things off. But you actually run a much bigger risk if you do give in to your emotions and you turn those things off prematurely, right? Because like I said, sometimes the algorithm just needs to shift a little bit to understand, okay, I didn't hit the right people today, tomorrow I will, right? The algorithm is an algorithm. It learns. It understands based off of the data that you feed it. And here at Roof Ignite, we specialize in feeding it the right data to tell it who the right homeowner is at the right time, right? And then it can take its own risk within its algorithm of matching your ad to the right homeowner. And so sometimes you don't get the best leads, but other times you get great leads. And some days you get nothing but great leads, and other days you get nothing but bad leads. And some days you get no leads at all, right? These are the inherent risks you run, and it makes it all the more risky if you try to handle them all yourself and you try to treat each consumer exactly the same. That's why it's so important to have a deeply trained sales team, of course, and why it's so deeply important to qualify your leads before they ever come onto your sales team's calendar, because you don't want to be risking your salespeople's times on terrible appointments when you could be giving them very high quality homeowners, which is exactly what we offer here at Roof Ignite. So I'll talk about maybe 1 or 2 more risks that you might run into in your roofing business, and then I'll wrap this video up. 2 more of the most important risks that you must understand and learn how to control are the ego risk and the timing risk. So ego risk is very similar to the last thing that I was discussing, which is your emotions, right? But your ego can be even worse. If your ego is telling you, this just has to work, I will get more leads, I will push through this and it will work, you're going to risk going way too far in the wrong direction. And we see it quite often that it's like these ads aren't working today, but they need to work. I'm going to dump more spend into it, right? Or the opposite. These ads aren't working today. They didn't work for the past 3 days. I need to leave. I need to go with another agency. I need to take this marketing thing in-house, right? The problem is when you make those rash decisions in either direction, they typically bite you, right? If I listen to my ego and say this ad is perfect, I spent so much time on making the perfect ad, it must work, and then I dump 20 grand into it, and it turns into like 3 leads that were all just asking me what it cost, and they wouldn't budge for anything over 5 grand. That's my ego. I just lost 20 grand because I couldn't get over my own thinking that my ad was perfect. When in reality, you'll see that no ad, typically speaking, is the ads you never would have thought would actually win that get the most results in your ad account and for your roofing business. And the other risk is timing risk, which is, there's so many examples of this, but one is with your different marketing channels, for example, because if you're using SEO, right, or PPC, you have to measure that performance over a much longer time horizon, like maybe weeks or months. And it'll all average out over that time period. With direct response advertising, it's shorter cycles. You can see the payoff within weeks, sometimes even days. If you're focusing heavily on your branding, which is extremely important, this kind of takes years, right? Just like it takes years to build up referral momentum, branding and positioning in your space can take years, depending on how much money you're able to throw at the branding process, right? And yeah, confusing these things, blending these things together, treating them all as one thing, it can really lead to this one-legged stool type thinking that we talked about earlier, where you now risk, well, branding takes too long. I need to just focus on my Facebook ads or just focus on my SEO. And it can lead you to make rash decisions in your business that can stall your progress. So you have to have a very substantial risk tolerance for all of these aspects. Understanding that the consumer is putting their dollars and their own pride and ego at risk whenever they decide to buy from you. Understanding that you're putting your entire business at risk on the financial aspects, the reputation aspects, and so many more aspects beyond this. You're risking your crews, you're risking your sales reps, you're risking legalities that you might not even know about, right? With every decision you make. And you're also risking so many intangible aspects every moment that you're carrying your business forward. But again, every risk you take can be the thing that takes your business to the next level. And one of my favorite risks to take, and one of our clients' favorite risks to take day in and day out, is with Facebook advertising. And our clients were very grateful that our clients continue to risk their advertising dollars with us. And it continues to pay off for them in strides. We've helped 80 plus roofers add tens of millions of dollars in revenue over the past 18 months, and we would love to see if we can help you do the same thing. If you do qualify, our offer to you is that we'll help you add 7 figures in roof jobs in the next year, or you don't pay. And there's a link to apply for this right here in the description. So I hope to see you on the other side. We'll talk soon, and take more risk, take bigger swings. We'll talk soon.